The United States uses veto against a UN Security Council resolution demanding immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Houthis recruit hundreds of prisoners in the capital Sana'a under the pretext of supporting Palestinians. Living conditions in Yemen are on the rise amid decline of economic growth. Good evening. Welcome to Yemen Today News. I am Abir Ali. The United States voted a United Nations resolution Friday, backed by almost all the Security Council members and dozens of other nations demanding an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza. Supporters called it a terrible day and warned of more civilian deaths and destruction as the war goes into its third month. The vote in the 50-member council was 13-1, with the United Kingdom abstaining. This report has more.
The U.S. vetoed a United Nations resolution on Friday that was supported by virtually all other Security Council members and dozens of other countries calling for an urgent humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza. The result was 13-1 in the 15-member council, with the UK abstaining. U.S. Deputy Ambassador Robert Wood called the resolution imbalanced and called out the council after the vote for what he claims is a failure to denounce Hamas's October 7th onslaught on Israel, in which 1,200 people were killed, or to recognize Israel's right to self-defense. An Israeli police investigation into the October 7 event revealed that Israeli troops killed many of their own civilians. Israel initially claimed Palestinian resistance killed 1,400 Israelis on the 7th of October, including soldiers, police, and civilians, but later revised the count to 1,200. 200 of the alleged victims were Hamas fighters or Palestinians whose bodies were burnt so badly that Israeli authorities could not initially identify them and assume them to be Israelis. Israel's military campaign has killed more than 17,400 people in Gaza and wounded more than 46,000. Meanwhile, thousands are trapped under rubble. Russia's deputy UN ambassador Dmitry Polyansky accused the United States of issuing a death sentence to thousands, if not tens of thousands, more civilians in Palestine and Israel, including women and children. He said that history will judge Washington's actions in the face of what he called a merciless Israeli bloodbath. The Council called the emergency meeting to hear from Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who for the first time invoked Article 99 of the UN Charter, which enables a UN chief to raise threats he sees to international peace and security. The UN anticipates this would result in a complete breakdown of public order and increased pressure for mass displacement into Egypt. The United States has a long history of vetoing measures that threaten its influence in the Middle East. In 2018, the UNSC drafted a resolution condemning the use of any excessive, disproportionate, and indiscriminate force by the Israeli forces against Palestinian civilians. The US vetoed the resolution.
Doctors Without Borders consider that the Security Council's lack of action regarding the war makes it a partner in the massacre. The non-governmental organization said that the lack of action by the Security Council and the use of veto power makes it accomplice in the ongoing massacre. Doctors Without Borders added that history will judge the delay in ending this massacre as the minimum level of humanity requires action. United Nations Secretary General stressed that there is no effective protection for civilians in Gaza. Guterres said that at the beginning of an emergency Security Council meeting that military operations in Gaza limit the possibility of aid reaching those in need, adding that the international community must immediately end the suffering of the residents of the Strip.
قصف إشي مرعب كان بالأول. طلعنا من الدار رحنا على المدارس، قعدنا حوالي فيها أسبوع. رموا المناشير قالوا اتجهوا إلى الجنوب. طلعنا قاعدين احنا هنا في خيم، وفروا لنا حلفيات، صرنا نروح نعبي كل يوم نعبي القلن كل أسبوعين 3 لما نتحمم. أنا بعاني من مرض اسمه روماتويد مفاجئ. في أي لحظة رجلي بتصير توجعني. أخوي مصطفى عمره 7 سنين، هو بيعاني من مرض السرطان. علاجي أنا وأنا في غزة كنت بأخده، بس الحين ما باخدوش. أخويا بياخد الدواء. ما كانتش الخيمة تبعتنا زي هيك، حطينا بس شراشف بالأول، بعد هيك مطرت الدنيا. الليل اللي سيلت علينا رحنا شاردنا عند جارنا هنا، كانت تنقت علينا في الليل. ضلينا قاعدين عنده لما شقشقت الصبح، بعد هيك طلعنا نظبط الخيمة. اشتقت انه نرجع على دارنا ونروح نلعب ونرجع لقرايتنا. نفسي الحرب تخلص، نفسي كل شيء ترجع لأمورها، نلعب في المنتزه مثلا، نرجع. اشتقنا يا شيخ، اشتقنا.
Informed sources in the capital Sana'a said that the Houthis forced 1,000 prisoners to become soldiers. The source added that most of those prisoners participated in a military parade that the rebel group conducted in Sana'a 2 days ago. This report has more details.
Houthi group forced nearly 1,000 prisoners in the capital Sana'a to participate in a popular armed parade that it recently held in Sabain Square for the first batch of open military courses, as the group claims that it will join to participate in the fighting in defense of Gaza and the liberation of Palestine, as it claims. This move was preceded by Houthi leaders led by the prison impersonating the public prosecutor, Mohammed al-Daylami, a few days ago carrying out a visit to the central prison in Sana'a countryside and issuing his instructions to release the detainees he met in exchange for agreeing to join the ranks of the group. A citizen who hails from the Bani Matar region west of Sana'a said that his family agreed under pressure and blackmail to release their son, who has been detained for months on charges of criticizing the crimes, violations, and corruption of Houthi leaders working in the security sector. He accused the Houthi group of taking advantage of the painful events taking place in the Gaza Strip. The Houthi bargaining was not limited to detainees in the Sana'a countryside, but rather extended over the past 2 weeks to more than 900 prisons and detainees. According to sources, targeting detainees for recruitment came in accordance with directives issued by the group's leader and was implemented and directly supervised by the Houthi leader, al-Daylami, appointed to the position of Attorney General. Yemeni human rights sources say that the Houthi leader continues his secret and public visits to prisons, detention centers, and basements with the aim of holding meetings with security and local leaders, supervisors, and prison officials in order to conclude agreements with prisoners to release them in exchange for pushing them to the battlefronts. The group, as part of its efforts to compensate for the shortage of its fighters, had previously launched massive recruitment campaigns against hundreds of prisoners and detainees in several areas under its control. Among these deals, the administration of a central prison in the city of Ib concluded 2 deals with about 85 prisoners, some of whom were detained for cases of murder, theft, and other crimes.
The British Maritime Trade Operations Authority said it received reports that an entity had ordered a ship to change its course in the southern Red Sea. The British Maritime added that the entity described itself as the Yemeni authorities. The British authority, in a statement, advised ships in the surrounding area to exercise caution and report any suspicious activity. Yemen Network for Rights and Freedoms said that the Houthi militia has issued more than 300 death sentences since 2017. The network indicated in a statement that the Specialized Criminal Court in Sana'a, which is under the control of the Houthis, has been used for purposes that serve the genocidal, bloody, and terrorist plans they are pursuing. The network pointed out that the ruling issued by the court are based on false and fabricated charges, including communicating with foreign parties. The 2 children died in Eb Governorate as a result of a traffic accident. Local sources said that the 2 children were killed following a traffic accident north of the city. Within about 2 weeks, about 20 people were killed and others injured in several incidents in the governorate. 3 gunmen from Houthi militia were killed and 2 others were injured by a Houthi militant in Al Bayda governorate. Local sources said that the Houthi member from Bani Matar in Sana'a opened fire on local Houthi members while they were sleeping. The sources added that the incident that occurred at the border site with the Bayhan district in Shabwa led to the killing of 3 Houthis. While economic challenges are rife across Yemen, rising inflation and the deterioration of the public services are making life unbearable for hundreds of thousands of families in the country. Power stations are shutting down due to a lack of fuel, and high prices our refineries are not operating. The following report has more.
Living challenges of Yemenis are increasing due to the Houthi coup, climate change, and various crises in the region, amid mounting warnings of worsening economic and humanitarian conditions and declining development indicators. The United Nations Development Programme predicted considerable losses to the Yemeni economy during the next 3 decades due to climate change, amounting to $93 billion, 3.8 million more people suffering from malnutrition. Furthermore, the International Federation of Red Cross Network warned that critical funding gaps exacerbate the crisis. In its Country Network Plan 2024, the Red Cross expected that by December 2023, 41% of Yemenis will be categorized under crisis and emergency levels of food insecurity. The report attributed the main drivers of the deterioration to a projected 20% shortfall in humanitarian assistance, an anticipated increase in food and fuel prices to about 30% above the average levels, and a continuation of the conflict. It also noted that 21.6 million people will require humanitarian assistance for protection. The report noted that, despite some progress, Yemen continues to grapple with food insecurity, and according to the latest Integrated Food Security Phase classification, the number of people facing severe acute food insecurity remains high. It indicated that the severity of the situation is underscored by widespread food insecurity, malnutrition, health, water, and sanitation and protection needs. About 17.3 million people need food and agricultural assistance. More than 20.3 million people lack access to vital health services, and another 15.3 million people require clean water and basic sanitation needs. Public services and infrastructure in Yemen have been severely affected by war and extreme weather conditions, noted the Federation, noting that most public workers have not received regular income in years.
Coming up in the news. Medical waste poses a real threat to the environment in Shabwa province. Welcome back. Women and Child Development Center organized an important symposium entitled Yemeni Women and the Right to Inheritance. The symposium, which included a number of working papers, aimed to shed light on the inheritance rights of Yemeni women and explore the challenges they face in achieving this right. This symposium was an important step towards enhancing awareness and understanding about women's rights in Yemen and encouraging public debate on this issue.
This symposium came to raise awareness of violence against women, including inheritance issues. This also came on the International Day for Human Rights, and the Center for Developing Women and Children always initiates to help women.
Aden International Airport seized a huge quantity of smuggled medicines not authorized for use in Yemen. A source in the airport security department said that a number of bags were suspected and were searched, and huge quantities of unlicensed and smuggled medicines were found. He pointed out that the Supreme Authority for Medicines seized those medicines, but some influential people are exerting intense pressure with the aim of removing the medicines and keeping the matter private. In Marib Governorate, the local authorities launched a campaign against street vendors who struggle to make a living to support their families. Such measures have caused a widespread anger among street vendors as those small projects are their only source of income. This report has more.
As a crumbling economy besieged displaced and impoverished families in Ma'rib, some have resorted to small projects such as stalls or mobile vehicles to make ends meet. However, a crackdown on vending carts in public spaces has squashed many families' only source of livelihood. The policing campaign has not provided alternative locations to small business owners.
They have displaced us and cut off our sources of income. We've 12 mouths to feed at home and no means to provide for them. Our conditions are beyond dire. We need stable sources of income. They chase off our carts from one street to the next without providing us with any solutions.
The local authority in Ma'rib cited urban dissonance as the reason for eliminating small projects, stating that the concentration of vending carts was marring public appearance. Meanwhile, many families have had their incomes cut as a result of these regulations.
As you can see, they demolished our only source of income. Displaced people have gathered here to run their business to make meager sums of money. They gave us a 2-day warning before razing our stalls to the ground. They didn't provide us with any alternatives.
In Ma'rib, a city that serves as a refuge for millions of Yemenis, some live in extreme poverty while others just manage to scrape by. These small projects, which have now been scrapped, were a small beacon of hope that allowed them to survive.
Turning to Shabwa province now, where medical waste continue to pose a real threat to the environment in the city. This report has more details.
The spread of waste that accumulates in most health facilities is one of the most dangerous environmental and health problems that Shabwa Governorate suffers from, especially with the absence of proper ways and means to dispose of it. People in the branch of General Authority for Environmental Protection in the Governorate see medical waste as one of the problems that are taken care of. This should be taken into consideration within the framework of the efforts made in the field of environmental sanitation.
We are facing an environmental problem, which is the waste surrounding hospitals. We are trying to find a way to solve this problem, as we visited many hospitals.
Doctors confirm that these virus types of waste, whether biological or radioactive, are considered deadly sources of danger to the safety and health of those who are exposed to it, as it's one of the most major reasons for transmitting and spreading diseases and infections through objects contaminated with viruses.
We are trying to get rid of the waste surrounding hospitals. This is quite dangerous and it leads to the spread of many diseases and viruses such as AIDS. I call on authorities to get rid of the waste and create a healthy and safe environment.
A lot of medical waste is accumulated and spread around hospitals and health facilities. Laboratories are required to safely dispose of these dangerous wastes using proper methods that are compatible with environmental standards.
Here is a reminder of the main headlines. The United States uses veto against the UN Security Council resolution demanding immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Houthi recruits hundreds of prisoners in the capital Sana'a under the pretext of supporting Palestinians. Living conditions in Yemen are on the rise amid decline of economic growth. This is the end of the news. Thank you for streaming with us. It was Abir Ali.